everyone, Tina here on a very overdue video for this tank behind me right here. I finally got a little bit of time, so let's dive into an update at FerrariReef. So we're a few months into the tank progression, about day 100 now, and things have been going pretty well. Now, my motto is always to take things slow. I also haven't had time to do a lot of things. I know I keep saying that with all the videos I say, but it really is true. Having said that, I have done a few little things and I will update you on them all. First, let's just take a look at the sump and see how it's going so far. So I'm going to be filming and just focusing on what I call my happy side of my sump. That's the gross side that I like to ignore and usually have that door shut when I do it. But let's take a look at the sump here. I finally have all my media organized basically in the way I want it, and I'm happy with the neat look of this sump. I love how everything's just organized like that, and there's also the functionality aspect of it. So we have full flow getting around all those balls there. Now, I am still going to further manipulate this media depending on the end result of when I do certain things, like putting in a reactor and then seeing what nitrates are like. If nitrates aren't as low as I'd like them to be, so far they're really low, but if they're not, then I'm going to manipulate this area right here with different types of bacteria and also block flow off and restrict it right down. That's all going to be dependent on what my nutrients balance out to when I'm fully stocked and when I have all the equipment I want to run. Skimmer's also up and running. That's probably one of the first product reviews I'm going to do. I'll bring that out pretty soon. Bacteria dosing. Now that's something I am very heavy-handed with. I love bacteria, in case I haven't said it before. But right now I am dosing a fairly heavy regime of bacteria in the tank's infancy. I still class this as a very young tank, even though there's a little bit of establishment there. Now, with bacteria, like I said, I've always had great success with it. It's not just about dosing heaps of bacteria. Again, it's about the homes for bacteria. So that's where all that media comes in. I'm trying to dose different brands to cover different strains. Sometimes, you know, some products are more successful than others for whatever reason. Each tank is different. So I'm also experimenting to see what's working with this tank as well. Now, as time does go on, the types of bacteria, the frequency, that sort of thing will change. Right now, I'm just trying to establish different strains, healthy populations, and as time goes on, dependent on what my tanks need, say nitrates are an issue down the track, I'll probably focus my bacteria dosing and my flow manipulation around the media targeted towards nitrates. So that is going to change as things go along, but so far I'm really liking the results of how things are looking in the tank, and I do attribute it greatly to bacteria. There are other factors, of course, but bacteria is definitely one of them. So one thing that's heavily tied in with bacteria is nutrients. So how are my nutrients going? They're actually very low. So my FerrariReef is something like 1 part per billion. I think it's equivalent to 0.003 parts per million for phosphate, and nitrates are close to undetectable as well. Now, that isn't the end result I will aim for, not because there's anything wrong with ultra low nutrients. Ultra low nutrients are fine as long as there's heavy input of feeding. I have found some slightly elevated nutrients, not too elevated of course, and every tank is different, sort of helps me out in the sense that I don't have to feed as heavily and as often, where my softies or LPS don't get angry. For example, in my nano, I used to feed like 6 times a day, super heavy, just to keep everything happy, healthy and growing. If not, things would bottom out way too fast. My mushrooms would bleach out, shrivel out, die. So low is fine as long as there's heavy input, but I do like them to be up a little bit, but we'll see how this tank goes. Now, as I said, they're low for now. That is completely fine. I like having it lower at the infancy of the tank. Now, one of the very beautiful things about reefing is that you can emulate something in a tank to another tank, cross-transfer everything over, and you might get completely different results. I love that about reefing, but I have found that higher nutrients don't quite affect more mature tanks like it does in an immature tank. Now, that's one reason why I like to keep nutrients lower at the start, because nutrients can fuel what we call the uglies a little bit more. If they are higher, it's going to fuel them more. So keeping it lower just sort of seems to work for me. I've actually never experienced the uglies in any of the tanks I've owned. I have attributed that to various factors, probably a bit of luck too, and I probably totally jinxed myself and I'm going to experience it in this one back here. But honestly, so far so good. Alright, so let's talk about the uglies. Now, the uglies is basically what I like to refer to as a second cycle. And a second cycle can last ages and ages and ages and ages. But it's where your tank is sort of newish and it's done the whole nitrogen cycle thing and it goes through a phase where it is literally ugly. You might get outbreaks of diatoms and cyano and sorts of green hair algae and that sort of gross stuff that we don't like. And usually it's because the tank is new and its biofiltration isn't fully established, so you might have issues with nitrates and phosphates, which could fuel these ugly growths, or there's silicates being burnt off in the system from sand and rock and that sort of thing. Or, which is something I've focused a little bit more on, is that there's a lot of empty real estate in this tank. There's all these surfaces where things like bacteria grow on and these ugly things I was talking about, and it's basically empty. There's nothing really occupying it. So whilst I haven't really done anything to target the uglies in specific, I have sort of done things to add bacteria and pods and amphipods and mycid and phytoplankton and all these sorts of wonderful things to sort of take hold in these real estate areas to hopefully not only make the tank a lot healthier, but outcompete these gross, ugly things that we don't like. So let's take a look and see how I've been tracking my uglies so far and how they're looking. Here it is in all its whiteness and glory. So let's get a close up. You can see my sand right there. That's probably the lowest flow spot. It's still pretty damn clean, and it's not just about bacteria, it's also about my cleanup crew. So that's a close up of the rockwork there. Like, it's probably a little bit hard to tell, but there's nothing furry growing on there at all. That's just some coralline I've stuck on to help spread the spores. But you can see there's the worst parts are probably like deep in the crevices where my snails cannot reach. It looks a little bit more brown than the rest, but honestly, like, the sand's really clean so far. No green hair algae, nothing like that so far. And whilst it's still early days, it's looking pretty clean, cleaner than I thought, in all honesty, from starting out from complete dry rock. There's, you know, bits of coralline that are growing on the actual rockwork, multiple little parts, sort of hard to get, but there you go. So like I said, it's still early days, and I have actually cranked up the lights more than I really need right now with minimal coral. Yes, I said coral, there's coral in there. But it's just to sort of test it and coax it out and see if there's anything that's going to grow. And again, so far, like, it's pretty good, and it's still early days and things can change, and the cycle of biodiversity is one that is ongoing, but so far in terms of the uglies, things are looking pretty good. I will chuck down below a bit of a list of what I did add that I think is probably attributed in help, and little things that I did and the reasons as to why. Instead of re-recording footage and talking about what I have added and what has been beneficial in my tank, I realised I've already made a video on this. So if you go to my YouTube channel and go down to my video of the second cycle, that is exactly what I added in my tank. and when I added it as well. So check that out if you're interested in what I think has helped my uglies so far. Update on FerrariReef and how it is going so far. Thank you so much for being so patient for an update, and if you're still here to the end, you're absolutely awesome. As always, I really appreciate the support. If you would like to see updates, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I will be posting updates, hopefully a little bit more often as I have been lately. If you have any questions at all, comment down below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Let me know how your reef tanks are doing as well. I love talking reef and I always love seeing other people's reefs. So comment down below and show me how things are going for your tank. Until next time on FerrariReef, bye for now.